Thank you so much for that, Mayor. We're going to bring to the podium Ray Two Hawks Watson, my apologies, from Providence Equity Initiative. Ray.
So first of all, I want to extend many thanks to the African American Ambassadors Group and Mayor Alorza, just for the honor and the privilege of being involved in this second phase of this very important initiative. For those who have been following my own personal work, particularly here on the East Side, raising the voice of the community and shedding light on the experiences so that we can address a better future for us all has kind of been the backbone of most of the work that I've done. So when we got the opportunity in collaboration with Roger Williams University to move on this particular project, it was more than just a project for me. So when we engaged it, we had 4 particular overall goals that we really wanted to see realized in the work that we were doing. First, and this came from conversation with Mr. Stokes, just around the magnitude of the report and how something so substantial could be taken by the general public who, we in a society now where reading isn't necessarily the way that most people engage with things, more visual, more interactive. So the first thing we wanted to do, the first goal we had was to humanize the report. Because there's a lot of information in there's a lot of things that happen, but a lot of times we can get lost in the fact that those are actual people's lives that happened to, and in many parts, people who are still living in this city today. And that's why I'm so honored that Cheryl's here today to share a few words later, because Cheryl's father actually owned a business that was taken when University Heights was made. So we're living around people who experienced this. And for our goal as the coalition, we wanted to make sure that people understood that this happened to actual human beings that are in our community. So we decided first and foremost to create an online survey just to get feedback from the public on their thoughts about the truth-telling report, and then their thoughts around what steps should be taken to address the issues and the challenges that the Black community in Providence has faced. And then we also specifically identified individuals to serve as lead stakeholders. These were individuals that we were aware over the years had good reputations in their communities, were looked at in their communities as individuals to be voices for their communities and to listen to. And our real goal with them was not to hire them, to bring them on board to help us move the initiative forward, but to, first of all, say thank you for the work that they have been doing, and then to ask them respectfully if they would, in a sense, put their stamp of approval on this work that we were doing so that the community would buy into it. And we had 16 of those, 4 from the 4 different neighborhoods, who did a great job of helping us to, when we articulated and reached out to community members, for the community to respond and say, yes, we'd like to be a part of that. We also did a number of engagement at a number of locations initially, whether it be local tribes based here in the Providence area, whether it be organizations, events that were going on. We were just out there letting people know that this initiative was taking place, and we wanted their feedback as members of the Providence community. So that was the first goal, to humanize it. Secondly, and I think that this is the most important element, we wanted to reframe the conversation around reparations. Usually when that conversation comes up, the first thing you'll hear from people who don't want anything to do with it is, well, this isn't the 1600s anymore. You weren't enslaved. I didn't own any slaves. No one alive today was impacted by that. So why do we even need to address it? To the mayor's point, immediately make it divisive. So we said, well, let's shift that conversation and let's not jump back to the 1600s when Europeans were just arriving here in boats, but let's talk about the 50s and 60s because Cheryl's still alive and she was impacted by that. My family was impacted by that. I'm sure there are people in this room right now whose families were impacted by that. And what does that do to the conversation around, well, no one was alive back then when that happened? What does that do to the conversation that, well, I didn't benefit from anything that happened there? Or what does that do to the conversation of that's not impacting upon you? Reframing allowed us to do away with all of those conversations and continue to do away with them. I just shut down a conversation last night on social media in that regard. But that was our second goal, to really reframe the discussion around reparations to something that was tangible, to something that could be quantified, and to something that we could measure the harm and provide some actual remedy to it. Our third point was that we wanted to make the information more accessible and more easily to be engaged with. And I really have to take my hat off to the incomparable Mr. Donald King, son of Providence, who led the development of the creative team for the website and the web portal, which is fantastic because not only does it allow you to engage with the stories that have been collected, it has a function on it for others who are not able to participate thus far to include their narratives into it. So as the mayor spoke about, an ongoing opportunity for reconciliation, a strategy that Mr. King calls quilting, and we're excited to be implementing it here in Providence. And then the last element, and I'll close my mouth after this, we wanted to create tools that could equip the community to be able to move this work forward, because we realized from the very beginning, this wasn't our project. We couldn't own this. This wasn't something that we could create in a manner that we would be able to control it moving forward. In fact, we thought that if we tried that, we'd be doing a disservice to the community. So what we did was we created tools, the web portal, the mini doc, which kind of shows and shows in that mini doc people who actually went through this and what they felt and what the impact was on them. To see their faces, the emotion, to hear it in their voice, it does something to people. And then once again, and Brian's going to talk about a little bit more about what our next steps are, really our goal was to provide tools for you all, the Rhode Island community and beyond, to take this work that we've done and do what you all need to do in the spaces where you're at. And the last thing I'll say is this. After all of this work, I think what's most exciting to me is the prospect that sometime next year, I might just happen to look on my social media screen and see some organization, some group I had no idea even existed perhaps, doing something around reconciliation and reparations for Black folks in this city. To me, that's what's going to be the real sort of, okay, we did it. When people I don't know see the value in this work and are able to pick it up and continue the work in the same manner that I'm going to, Brian's going to, and all of our team members and the members of the new commission are going to as well. So with that being said, in our language, we say Katapatush, and I want to also thank the pastor as well. I shared with them when I came in. I thought this was a very fitting space. My great-great-grandmother, Alice Michael Cross, full-blood Narragansett Indian, if I'm not mistaken, was one of the founders of this very church. And if not a founder, heavily involved with this church and the congregation here. So very honored for my own personal family heritage to be here sharing these words. Katapatush Wuchia Chusuta, thank you for listening, and I'll turn the floor back over to Shondell.